Arsène Lupin vs. Herlock Sholmes, Episode 6, The Final Confrontation. Welcome back, Detective. 1 year has passed since Lupin and Sholmes shook hands on their unusual truce. 12 months for both men to evolve, to integrate lessons learned, to prepare for their inevitable reunion. Today, we witness the culmination of their extraordinary duel, a confrontation that will prove victory and defeat aren't opposites, but sometimes the same thing. Are you ready for an ending that redefines what winning means? Picture this: August 1909. Paris. Exactly 1 year after their agreement, Arsène Lupin returns to France. But he's not the same gentleman thief who left. His year in London, Berlin, and Vienna wasn't vacation. It was education. He studied British police methods, German systematic thinking, Austrian psychological theory. He's integrated detective reasoning into his criminal planning, becoming a thief who thinks like the detective hunting him. Meanwhile, Sholmes has spent his year transforming French police methods. He's trained a new generation of detectives in pattern recognition, taught them to think beyond obvious suspects, shown them how criminals exploit social blind spots. He's also done something unprecedented. He's studied criminal psychology, not from the outside, but by continuing to inhabit the Pierre Ledoux identity, maintaining contacts in the underworld, understanding crime from within. He's become a detective who thinks like the criminal he's hunting. Think about what this means. My apprentice. 2 geniuses, each now fluent in the other's language. A thief who can predict detective responses. A detective who can anticipate criminal innovation. When such minds collide, what happens? Do they cancel each other out or create something entirely new? The reunion begins with letters. Of course it does. Lupin sends Sholmes a formal announcement. Dear Herlock, my year of exile is complete. I return to Paris with renewed purpose and enhanced methods. Shall we resume our game? But perhaps this time the stakes should be worthy of how we've both evolved. I propose we collaborate on something unprecedented, solving a crime neither of us committed. Your intrigued opponent, A.L. Sholmes, responds immediately. Monsieur Lupin, an intriguing proposal. What crime requires both a master thief and master detective working together? And more importantly, can we trust each other enough to collaborate without one betraying the other? I'm willing to explore this possibility. Meet me at the Café de la Paix, noon tomorrow. Come unarmed and undisguised. Let's speak as equals. 8 the next day. Paris witnesses something extraordinary. Arsène Lupin and Herlock Sholmes sitting together publicly in a crowded cafe, conversing like old friends rather than adversaries. Journalists frantically take notes from nearby tables. Inspector Ganimard watches from across the street, torn between arresting Lupin and respecting Sholmes's apparent plan. Lupin explains the situation. 3 weeks ago, a crime occurred that offends both of us professionally. The Vermeer painting The Concert was stolen from the private collection of Monsieur Boitrelotte, a genuinely honorable man who acquired it legally and treats it as public trust, allowing scholars free access. The theft was brutal. A guard was severely injured. Beautrelet was terrorized in his own home, and the painting was damaged during removal. Sholmes immediately understands why this matters. You're offended because it violates your code, violence against innocence, destruction of art, cruelty without purpose. And I'm offended because it's crude criminality without elegance or justification. Someone is stealing your reputation, committing crimes attributed to you that you didn't commit. Exactly, Lupin nods. The newspapers assume I'm responsible because the theft superficially resembles my style. But I would never injure a guard or damage a Vermeer. Whoever did this is either trying to frame me or is a crude imitator who understands nothing of what I actually represent. I want them caught and exposed as the brutal criminal they are. Think about this collaboration. Detective the thief wants justice against another thief, and the detective wants to catch a criminal, even if it means working with his nemesis. Both men recognize that some crimes transcend their personal rivalry. What does this say about how they've evolved? They begin investigating together, and the dynamic is fascinating. Lupin analyzes the crime scene like a thief. See how they entered through the skylight. Crude rope work, no elegance, and this safe-cracking technique is brutal force, not finesse. This is someone with strength but no artistry. Sholmes examines evidence like a detective. The guard's injury pattern suggests military combat training. The theft timing coincides with Beautrelet's known schedule, indicating inside information, and these mud traces contain clay specific to the Normandy coast. Together, their formidable Lupin's criminal expertise, combined with Sholmes's analytical methods, they identify the culprit within 3 days. A former military officer named Duroc, who's been committing thefts across Paris, deliberately mimicking Lupin's style to misdirect police while operating with brutal efficiency that's antithetical to Lupin's philosophy. But here's where their collaboration faces its ultimate test. To catch Duroc, they need to set a trap, and the bait must be irresistible. Sholmes proposes using his own collection of rare books as the target, spreading word through criminal networks that he's temporarily keeping them at his Paris apartment. Duroc, emboldened by previous successes, will strike, but Lupin raises a crucial objection. If we're collaborating genuinely, Lupin says carefully, I need to be honest. Your book collection includes a first edition Gutenberg Bible worth 500,000 francs. The temptation for me to simply steal it myself during this operation would be enormous. Can you trust me enough to resist that temptation? And can I trust you enough not to use this as a trap to arrest me once Duroc is caught? It's the fundamental question of their entire relationship laid bare. Can a thief and detective truly collaborate without betrayal? Sholmes considers carefully. I trust you because you've demonstrated honor even when dishonorable action would benefit you. You kept our agreement for a full year when you could have returned earlier. That's evidence of character stronger than criminal classification. And I trust you, Lupin responds, because you've learned that justice isn't always about arrest and punishment. You let me go last year because the outcome mattered more than your ego. That's wisdom many detectives never achieve. So yes, I think we can trust each other, not because we're no longer opponents, but because we're opponents who've learned mutual respect. Think about this moment. My apprentice. The thief and detective, acknowledging that trust between enemies is possible when built on demonstrated character rather than naive faith. What does this tell us about the nature of honor? The trap is set. Word spreads through criminal channels about Sholmes's vulnerable book collection. 3 nights later, Duroc strikes exactly as predicted. He enters through the apartment's skylight using the same crude rope techniques. Heads directly for the safe containing the books. But this time, he's walking into a room where Arsène Lupin and Herlock Sholmes wait together in the darkness. When Sholmes lights the lamp, Duroc freezes in shock. Lupin and Sholmes together, Lupin's voice carries cold anger. You've been committing crimes in my name, monsieur. Crude, violent crimes that violate everything I represent. Time to face consequences. Sholmes adds, and you've been exploiting my pursuit of Lupin to operate freely, assuming I'd blame him for your work. That ends tonight. Duroc tries to fight. He's larger and stronger than either man. But here's where their collaboration proves decisive. Lupin knows every dirty fighting trick criminals use, anticipating Duroc's moves. Sholmes knows systematic defensive tactics from police training. Together, they subdue him efficiently. Neither alone capable of matching his strength, but combined perfectly coordinated. Inspector Ganimard arrives minutes later with officers, having been positioned nearby by Sholmes. Duroc is arrested, the stolen Vermeer recovered from his warehouse, and evidence of multiple brutal crimes secured. Justice, for once, is clean and simple. The violent criminal caught, the innocent victims vindicated, the damaged art recovered. But then comes the moment that defines everything. With Duroc safely in custody, Ganimard turns to Lupin, and now, Monsieur Lupin, I'm afraid I must arrest you as well. You're wanted for numerous crimes, regardless of your help tonight. The tension in the room becomes electric. Lupin looks at Sholmes. So, detective, do you honor our collaboration, or do you prioritize my arrest? Sholmes faces the defining choice of his career. Everything in his training says arrest the criminal. Everything in his evolution says honor the partnership that achieved justice. He turns to Ganimard. Inspector, I saw no evidence of Arsène Lupin in this apartment tonight. I saw a private citizen named Monsieur Beaumont who assisted in capturing Duroc. If you arrest someone based solely on resemblance without concrete evidence, you'll face civil lawsuits the department can't afford. It's the thinnest of legal fictions, and everyone knows it. But Ganimard, seeing Sholmes's determination and recognizing the impossible position, reluctantly agrees. Very well. But Monsieur Beaumont should leave Paris promptly before someone with better eyesight recognizes him. Lupin nods gratefully to Sholmes and departs into the Paris night. leaving behind the Gutenberg Bible he could easily have stolen during the chaos. So tell me, detective, what just happened? Did Sholmes betray his duty by letting Lupin escape? Or did he fulfill a higher duty by honoring a partnership that achieved genuine justice? And did Lupin betray his criminal nature by leaving valuable treasure unstolen? Or did he honor something more valuable than any book, the trust of a worthy opponent? The next morning, both men receive their final letters of this chapter. Sholmes finds his "Dear Herlock, thank you for honoring our collaboration. The Gutenberg Bible remained safe, not because I lacked opportunity, but because stealing from a partner would have made me the crude criminal Duroc represented. I've learned that being a gentleman means keeping faith even when theft is possible. Our game continues, but it's a different game now, one where mutual respect matters as much as victory. Until we meet again, La Lupin receives his Monsieur Lupin. You could have stolen my most valuable book, but chose honor over profit. I could have arrested you, but chose justice over procedure. Perhaps we've both won by losing our rigid certainties about each other. You're still a criminal and I'm still a detective, but we're both something more, opponents who've discovered that wisdom lies not in defeating each other but in recognizing when collaboration serves greater good. Until our next encounter, the newspapers report the story as a detective triumph. Sholmes captures violent criminal with anonymous informant's help. They never learn the full truth that the greatest detective and greatest thief in Europe worked together, trusted each other, and both chose honor over advantage. Some victories are too complex for headlines. Inspector Ganimard summarizes it perfectly. You too have ruined simple morality for me. The thief becomes an ally for justice. The detective protects the criminal he's sworn to catch. And somehow the right outcome is achieved through completely wrong methods. I don't know whether to commend you or arrest you both for making law enforcement philosophically complicated. But here's the deeper truth revealed by this finale. My apprentice, Lupin and Sholmes' year apart didn't prepare them to defeat each other, it prepared them to understand each other. They're still opponents, still on opposite sides of law, but they've transcended simple categories of good and evil, legal and illegal, victory and defeat. Think about what they've each learned. Sholmes discovered that perfect deduction without compassion is incomplete justice. Lupin discovered that artistic crime without moral boundaries is just brutality with style. Both learned that their greatest opponent could become their most valuable ally when facing something that offends them both. So who won their year-long duel? Sholmes achieved significant victories, destroyed Lupin's network, forced his exile, caught numerous criminals. Lupin achieved significant victories, evaded capture, maintained his legend, proved his methods superior repeatedly. But measuring victory in wins and losses misses the point entirely. They both won by evolving beyond their original selves. The detective who only knew logic learned intuition and compassion. The thief who only knew artistry learned responsibility and honor. They're both more complete, more sophisticated, more genuinely wise than when they began. That's a victory that transcends their individual competition. As this season concludes, we leave them in an unusual equilibrium. Lupin continues his career as a gentleman thief, but with enhanced awareness of consequences and responsibility. Sholmes continues his detective work, but with enhanced understanding of human complexity and moral nuance. They'll meet again. Opponents like this always do, but their future encounters will be informed by everything they've learned together. The final image is perfect in its symbolism. That evening, Sholmes sits in his Paris apartment reading by lamplight. On his desk sits the Gutenberg Bible, untouched by Lupin, despite perfect opportunity. Across the city, Lupin sits in his secret library, examining the recovered Vermeer before returning it to Beautrelet. On his desk sits a magnifying glass. Sholmes left it behind accidentally, and Lupin will return it next time they meet. Both men smile, thinking about the same truth. The game continues, but it's evolved into something richer than mere pursuit and escape. It's become a conversation between brilliant minds, each making the other better through challenge and collaboration. That's not victory or defeat. It's something far more valuable. Thank you for joining me through this extraordinary season of intellectual warfare, moral evolution, and ultimately mutual respect between worthy opponents. Arsène Lupin and Herlock Sholmes will return in future adventures, but they'll never again be simply thief and detective. They're now something more complex, more interesting, more human opponents who've learned that the greatest victory is making your enemy better, and the greatest wisdom is recognizing when collaboration serves something larger than rivalry. Until next time, remember, the best detective isn't the one who catches every criminal, and the best thief isn't the one who never gets caught. The best of both are those who evolve beyond simple categories into genuine wisdom. That's the lesson Lupin and Sholmes have taught us and each other.